Okay, we have time. You can't escape yet. We have time for a few questions, and so if you would like to ask a question, we have some microphones here, and you can line up behind the microphone, and I will help direct traffic, and so that Steve can actually answer questions.
They're all numbed.
They're all numbed. Okay, well, I could ask a question since that's kind of my role as chair. So it's, I guess one thing that I think about as a specific challenge in terms of a changing climate is what do we do when sort of the ecological rules of the way fire operates change, so that, you know, what we've learned in the past can't necessarily be used to manage fire in the future.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I've heard it often, the sort of no analog future. So what's the point of the past? Or as Henry Ford said, you know, history is more or less bunk. That has a strong sort of popular heritage as well. I would go back to one of my opening observations that the issues we see now are historically constructed. So if you're a biologist, and are you really going to dismiss evolution, how things change? They're going to operate on what exists. So we took one path, we'd like to be on the other path. We can't go back and do it. We have to operate from where we are. So I think the past tells us a lot about why our conditions today look the way they do. They don't tell us what we should do. But I'm not sure that I see fire science telling us that either. I think there was a belief, or at least a hope, that this could be the case. And if we invest in the right science, we find the missing parts, we find a new way to connect the dots, we will be told what we need to do, and then we just have to muster the resources and political and social will to do it. And I think we're in an era now where we've lost that chance to get, if we ever had it, we've lost the chance to get ahead of the problem. And what I see from people on the field is that they are going to a managed wildfire or other kinds of operations as the best of many bad alternatives. And I don't think they believe we can actually get ahead of it.
I believe you're probably first. I wasn't really paying attention on that side of my head, so we have a question?
Steve, you had noted that fire doesn't necessarily have a discipline, is a more of a problem-oriented, applied sort of science at this point. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, I think it's a reality. And again, I go back, why did I spend time on where does fire have a heritage? It actually did in the ancient world. I mean, for Aristotle, it was a model system. You had to get fire right or you didn't get the rest of it. That is long gone. So the only way, the only interest, fire as an integrated subject, as an autonomous subject, will be by problems. And that's just the reality. The other ancient elements, you know, all have academic disciplines and whole departments. The only fire department on a campus is the one that sends emergency vehicles when an alarm sounds. So I think that is just the reality, and we have to accept that and then find some way to bring all these varied fire interests where that can help us understand the problem in its totality. I say that as an academic because what we do is abstract, but there's also a reason why academic is a pejorative term.
And so we have time for one more question.
Hi, Stephen. I loved your analogy of the terminology of maybe we need a national cohesive strategy for fire science research. And I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on the vision behind that statement.
Yeah, it's a phrase in search of a referent. It seems to me that given the variety of stuff out there, all these different people coming from all these different disciplines, and yet they all, like a series of Venn diagrams, the one thing they all overlap is on fire. It seems to me that if we want to avoid the rising publication curve without effects on the ground, we will need some kind of way to bring the strengths of these various components together. And I could see a kind of Fire Stop 2 model as an effort to beta test some of these ideas. But it seems to me some kind of all hands, all lands, or in this case, all disciplines, all topics agenda might well be worth pursuing. Because traditionally, the Forest Service provided that integration. That's no longer the case, hasn't been the case for a while. And so I think I see this disconnect.
I
Okay?
think that we need to get to our next speaker, and so